Welcome to the third part of the series, I'm moving to Asia. If you missed any of the previous episodes, don't worry, you can always catch up on them. Just click the notification in the top right corner of the screen or visit techmaniacd.pl, where in the Other tab you'll find the travel section with all the previous parts.
In this one, plenty of attractions await you as we finally reach Malaysia.
I'll tell you what documents are required this year to even enter the country. I'll also take you to the hospital where I spent 2 days, and then we'll take a look at local automotive culture, as well as how the locals use English and why they know it so well.
There will also be a family shopping trip.
We'll visit a few stores and shopping malls, and I'll also show you the inside of a typical Chinese house in Malaysia. This is something an ordinary tourist wouldn't have a chance to see. We'll also take a look at how my beloved's dad opens a fresh coconut for me, and if there's enough time, we might even visit their new house.
Will we be able to fit all of this into one episode?
We'll find out in just a moment, but first, let's go back to the events from part 2, right after the intro. The boat approaches us reminiscent of a movie scene that unfolded at this very spot. A place that today seems almost idyllic was once the scene of dramatic events. No wonder the Americans had tough conditions here. Dense vegetation, treacherous swamps, and omnipresent mangroves made this area exceptionally challenging.
However, the boat operator doesn't seem to have any trouble at all. He skillfully maneuvers between the protruding roots. Clearly, years of experience make a difference.
A short but refreshing ride for which you have to pay extra, but it's a small price to pay in exchange for saving a few kilometers of walking.
Take a breather before continuing your journey. It's worth it.
The next stop on the trip is a lunch included in the price, which we shared with a Korean couple and their children. We had lunch, it was very tasty. Now we're heading to the sea. We didn't even know that there was a fully open, wide, beautiful sea here. As you saw yourselves, this whole trip was organized. Of course, it's convenient. We're here for a few days. We won't rent a car just for 4 people, and it's worth taking advantage of this. Because look, we were picked up, not from the hotel, but here it's windy. We were picked up not from the hotel, but we had to get to the meeting point ourselves, you could say, to the office. It's not a big problem. Grab is of course super cheap, so you can definitely use it. However, now lunch was included in the price. This ride, the entrance tickets, and only this boat ride we had to pay extra for. In total, it was 27 euros per person for the whole day. It's almost 3 o'clock now. You can definitely rely on an organized tour like this. The price, as you can see, isn't very high, and I can see that it's not very clean here. I'll show you in a moment. It's really nice over there, just like by the sea, but here it's kind of... Well, you could clean it up, rake it. It's not that big of a problem, especially since there's a resort here, right?
A resort. They could take care of it. After all, people live there. I come here and you can see everything is so messy. There are nets here, nets there. Something's lying here, something's lying there. It's a bit disappointing it doesn't make a good impression. Look, there are some junk over there, some junk here. Well, let's go take a look at the sea itself. But there are tons of shells here. It's so many that it crunches under your feet.
And that's what reality looks like. There's a net there, a net over there, and another net over there.
It's a bit of a shame to destroy nature.
Aware that its history is part of a larger, painful puzzle whose echo still carries through generations.
American forces dropped over 4.5 million liters of deadly herbicide here, poisoning not only the soil, but also the waters. Today, 50 years after the end of the conflict, Ganza is slowly regaining its former balance. What you see now is a fresh catch from local fishermen, and let this be living proof that the ecosystem, although devastated and truly put to the test, can also recover with the help of people.
This is a place worth visiting and above all remembering.
Alright, it's getting late, so it's time to head towards Ho Chi Minh City.
We're already on the ferry, but the situation is that we got out of our bus because our guide said we'd be stuck in traffic for another hour and 20 minutes. You see, we're slowly pulling away. The engines are getting louder and louder. So we would have to sit on the bus for an hour and 20 minutes because the traffic jams are unbelievable, and it's all because today is their national holiday. It's supposedly Monday, but of course it's a national holiday, and because of that, practically all the locals, well, maybe not all 11 million of them, but some of them, showed up here today, came to this island, because here is where you get the best seafood dishes, right? So everyone came here to eat some real food. That's why the traffic jams are so bad. That's why we decided to walk instead. We walked, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. That's how long the traffic was. We got on the ferry. Our guide talked to the security guards he knew so they would let us in. So now we're on our way. We should catch a taxi home, freshen up if anything, and we'll make it to the opera on time. At least that's the plan, because as I can see, we're getting closer and closer.
This ferry's actually pretty fast, you could say.
Here, I think I actually have the captain steering right behind me, as you can see.
The captain, yes, the captain.
Unfortunately, cameras aren't allowed in the opera, so you can't take pictures. I might try to snap one anyway. And what's more, for today, that's all, and we'll see each other again tomorrow, because tomorrow we're already flying to Malaysia. We went to the Opera House in Saigon for the performance, one of the most impressive landmarks in the city.
This building, erected at the end of the 19th century in the style of French architecture, is not only a historical gem, but also the center of cultural life in Ho Chi Minh. That evening, we had the opportunity to see the AO show. An extraordinary combination of bamboo circus, acrobatics, traditional Vietnamese music, and contemporary dance. The performance masterfully showcases the contrast between the peaceful rhythm of rural life and the dynamic urbanization of Vietnam, addressing the topic of social and cultural changes. It is one of the most highly regarded shows in the region, where art meets history and artistic expression reflects the spirit of contemporary Vietnam. We paid 1,250,000 dong per person for the tickets, which amounts to about 180 zlotys. Although the show impressed us, it must be admitted that the price is not among the lowest. It's not an attraction that can be recommended to everyone without exception. It all depends on individual preferences and budget.
If spending almost 200 zlotys per person is not a problem, it's worth seeing this show because it provides unforgettable experiences.
But if you prefer to spend that amount on other experiences, Saigon has plenty of equally interesting places to offer that won't put such a strain on your wallet.
It's 6:38 and I've been hearing music playing since 6 o'clock. Not sure if you can hear it there.
They're playing badminton over there. They're dancing here. So, the plan was that today we could finally sleep in until a solid 8 o'clock, but from 6 o'clock I couldn't really sleep anymore, I was just dozing. They didn't let me sleep, no. It's nice that so many people exercise and take care of their health, it's just a shame they do it so loudly, so early. Even though I slept with earplugs, the sounds carried strongly across the river. I thought they started at 6 in the morning, but no. I see now that my sleep was interrupted as early as 5:30. Although it was short, fortunately it was solid and quickly recharged my life battery. We're already at departures in Vietnam, waiting for the airline called AirAsia. As for the luggage, it's a bit more limited because normally it's 20 kilograms here. When it comes to the flight from Dublin from Ireland to Vietnam, we had 30 kilograms as standard, so it took us a while to repack. And we had to buy 5 extra kilograms, spread our things between our parents' stuff, because they also have their own 20-kilogram bag, but they didn't bring as much as we did since they only came here for a few days. We're still flying there with more stuff, cameras, laptops and chargers, all of which weigh a lot.
And now we're just waiting for the passport check.
As usual, the lines aren't short, but the luggage is checked in and the passports are checked. Now it's time to grab some breakfast. Actually, you can see pho everywhere in Vietnam. It's a kind of noodle soup, the most popular one, so basically you'll see pho everywhere at airports and all around the city.
Very tasty.
Yeah, we're at the airport and we realize we're hungry now, so we'll get something to eat. But in the morning, we're usually not hungry, especially eating at 8 or 9. There's no point forcing ourselves to eat before the flight, especially something from the street, which might not be entirely safe. So we decided it's definitely safer and better to eat something at the airport. Of course, it's always more expensive at the airport. That's absolutely normal, right? But we thought that since we're in Vietnam and the prices here are really okay, the food here wouldn't cost a fortune either. But as it turns out, it's more expensive than we thought.
We went to a small restaurant here right next to Burger King, and the prices are already in dollars. So just for rice with meat, you pay about $10.
I got myself chicken udon, which you could say is like a chicken broth soup. Chicken costs $13, so prices are similar to Europe. But you have to eat something, as especially since we have maybe not a long flight ahead, but it's almost 11 o'clock now, and we'll land in Kuala Lumpur probably around 3 o'clock, plus another hour to get home, so we decided we need to eat something today. So it's always worth bringing some food with you if you have the space, if you have the weight allowance, or just accept that you'll have to pay more for food at the airport if you want to take advantage of that convenience. And since we're about to eat, here's an example of a large airplane compared to a small Malaysian Airlines plane. Many people know that one of their planes crashed into the ocean somewhere and was never found. There was a search operation a few years ago. However, we're flying with a different airline, which is Asia Airlines. It's like an Asian version of fast food. Of course, it's better than burgers and fries, but the price is quite high. Altogether, $42. No wonder there aren't any crowds here. Yes, all of these are prices in dollars. $16 for a sandwich, or $7.50 for this pseudo pizza, or over $8 for a baguette sandwich. Once again, I'd like to remind you that a self-respecting Pole won't pay for water. So remember to bring a bottle with you and fill it up at a water fountain like this. Sometimes you need to search for a stand like this, but as you can see, the water is running, albeit incredibly slowly. And it's available. It's right here in the terminal, and that's it. When buying the ticket, I chose row 14, which is by the emergency exit, meaning extra legroom. For me, it's absolutely fantastic, although not necessary on such a short flight. If at the time of departure you decide you want to change your less comfortable seats for ones with more space, that's possible. The extra charge for seats by the emergency exit ranges from 60 to 120 ringgit, which might be worth considering, especially if you're taller. Sometimes a little extra space can completely change your flight experience. We've arrived. The journey and flight went smoothly without any issues. At this moment, our baggage carousel number 10 has started, so we'll wait a little longer. I didn't mention it earlier, but I had to get a digital acquire card. Let me tell you about it now. Something called the Malaysia Digital Arrival Card. Maybe you can see it. I had to fill out something like that, and I did it sometime before my flight. It's very important because when I was going through passport control, there were no problems at all. I just scanned it, the gates opened, but there was a couple from the United Kingdom in front of me, and they weren't let through. The doors didn't open for them. They had to turn back somewhere, and they'll probably be figuring it out for a while. So it's worth taking a look at this card. I didn't do it myself. My beloved did it for me, so I don't know the details. But if you're going to be flying in, you should definitely look into it because it's only recently, I think since this year, that it's required. So we'll grab our luggage and head to the car. Actually, to the cars. Sorry, I thought we were already going, but only one bag has arrived so far. What was I going to say? We were supposed to be picked up by my brother himself in one car, but since we have two huge suitcases that normally hold 30 kilograms each, they won't fit in one car. Plus, we have our carry-ons, smaller suitcases, bags, and nobody wants to ride for about an hour with all that on their lap. So we also asked my sister to come. Actually, my sister's boyfriend said he also doesn't feel like working today, so I think they're both taking a sick day, the so-called Polish L4, and I guess both of them will come pick us up. So 2 people will fit in each car. Our parents will probably go with my brother, and we'll go with my sister and her boyfriend and come home together.
All right, they're calling me. I'm going. My sister and her boyfriend are already loading our luggage. Well, if it fits, it fits. The car is loaded. We basically took 2 bags because we have a bigger car. The car has been started and we're preparing to head inside. Finally, civilization. This is how Malaysian roads appear.
It's as wide here as it is in America.
Sure, maybe not everywhere, but Malaysia is one of the more economically developed countries in Southeast Asia, although of course it doesn't match the wealth of Singapore, which remains the economic giant of the region.
Compared to Vietnam, Cambodia and Thailand, Malaysia fares well in terms of net national income per capita, which in 2025 exceeds $13,000.
That's about 50,000 zlotys per year, which is 4,100 zlotys per month. Although for some, this may not sound impressive, especially when compared to earnings in Poland, it's worth remembering that the purchasing power and cost of living in Malaysia are completely different.
Fuel, groceries, housing, everything here is much cheaper. In Malaysia, with 2 or 3 years' salary, an average family with modest income can buy a house with 3 bedrooms and a garden, which in many countries seems absolutely unrealistic. We'll be talking a lot more about real estate in this series, but it's already worth noting that compared to neighboring countries, Malaysia is in a much better economic situation. And although it's a bit awkward for me to admit, the standard of living here seems higher than in Poland or Ireland. An ordinary working person here can easily support themselves, eat, buy a car, and still save something for the future.
The Malaysian ringgit is a currency that's relatively easy to convert, especially for Poles.
In the past, 1 ringgit was equal to 1 zloty, and today its value is a bit lower, but still intuitive.
Unlike in Vietnam, where dealing with hundreds of thousands of dong could be really confusing, here the prices are much clearer. Looking at 1590 ringgit for a smaller duck dish, I immediately know that it will be about 14 zloty, which makes it easier to keep track of daily expenses. My thoughts were interrupted by the highway toll gates, but check out this clever trick.
My beloved sister is also just a bit over 1.5 meters tall, so instead of reaching by force, all you need is a special grabber for the payment card.
A simple gadget that literally costs pennies, but helps you avoid nervously stretching and the risk of scratching your rims or mirrors. Sometimes the simplest solutions make the biggest difference.
While driving on the highway, I checked what speeds we can expect outside built-up areas.
Saily gets 4G plus here, and the speeds are around 40 megabits per second for download and around 5 megabits for upload.
Yes, we're constantly on the move somewhere between tropical forests. The result is quite decent. Speaking of decency, being close to home, we stopped for dinner.
In Chinese culture, everyone orders something they like, but the custom is that there's a rotating tray in the middle of the table and everyone helps themselves from it.
This way, it's more convenient to reach for the chosen dishes without constantly asking others for help.
As I mentioned before, the Malaysian currency is much easier to understand. Every 10 ringgit is about 9 zlotys. I'll pause the video here because I'd like to explain what these 2 prices next to each dish mean.
So this symbol xiao means a small portion and dada means a large portion.
Here my beloved corrected me, saying it's xiao te and tao tai, but I pronounce it terribly anyway, so don't pay too much attention to that.
This is very common, especially in Chinese and other Asian restaurants, where guests can order dishes depending on the number of people at the table or their preferences regarding the size of the meal.
This allows for flexibility and adjusting the order to the customer's needs.
The dishes start to appear on the table, spreading wonderful aromas that stimulate the appetite.
Since not everything has arrived yet, I patiently wait for the next dishes.
They've just brought the chicken in mayonnaise, so it's time to start serving.
A large portion of Sanangan fish, also known as threadfin, valued for its delicate, almost velvety texture and subtle flavor, is also placed on the table. For dessert, a real sweet treat. Here is the Chinese delicacy tangyuan, made from glutinous rice flour. These small round balls are often filled with various sweet fillings. In this case with a black sweet sesame paste.
The whole thing is served in a sweet broth, creating an extremely tasty combination. And there's also this unique pancake.
After a successful dinner, we headed home. It's located in the small town of Bemban, which we're just entering now. Bemban, situated in the Yasin district of the historic state of Malacca, is a place of tranquility. This town offers convenient access to nearby attractions, such as the Yasin hot springs.
But darkness is already falling. It's time to settle down for the night.
Good morning, friends. Regrettably, we woke up very early today.
I think I got up at around 5:30. I couldn't sleep anymore.
And that's because we were supposed to leave before 7. We're on our way. We've arrived. Basically, we're already at something like a body checkup. You know, getting blood tests done, doing some stress tests. Those general things that you should supposedly do once a year. This year I'm turning 40, so it would make sense to do something like this more often. My last blood tests were about 3 years ago. Here, they'll check everything.
I'll show you the list and how much it costs. Maybe I'll even put it on the screen right now. You can read it.
If I manage to translate it quickly, then I'll translate it. You can compare what the prices are in Poland for this type of service. We appear to be in some kind of hospital, though it may not be very fancy.
The ride probably took about 50 minutes, and that's because there was traffic, and the traffic was because school is starting. After all, it's Wednesday, so that's totally normal.
The hospital is elegant and spacious. No extravagance, no riffraff, and it smells nice everywhere.
So as not to make a fool of myself, I avoided taking pictures inside the offices, but I can tell you that inside there's modern high-quality equipment. So I stepped out of the hospital for a moment because I'm still waiting for one last test, which is a hearing test. It's just that it was 1 o'clock, there's a lunch break, it's almost 2 o'clock, so I'll have to go back soon.
However, I wanted to tell you that never in my entire life have I had as many tests as I had today.
The list and the conversation with the doctor were long. All right, everything is rather okay, except for the cholesterol, but that's obvious. People like to eat, and lately I haven't been running as much as I should, but those are just minor things. So I'm outside the hospital. As you can see, there are palm trees. There's the hospital. What I wanted to say is a lot of tests, a stress test, electrocardiography, running on a treadmill. You know what a treadmill is, the thing you run on. Sometimes I forget Polish, unfortunately. But the channel helps me keep my Polish intact, so it's not that ruined. Alright, but let's get to the point. This list, as I said, I'll try to upload for you. You should be able to see it. We did blood tests, different markers for cancer. I had a magnetic resonance imaging, I had an ultrasound of the abdominal cavity, heart, lungs, and lower parts of the body. I had a bone density measurement done. There was absolutely a hell of a lot of everything. None of the tests hurt or anything like that. The only thing I don't like is when my eyes are touched, and there was also an eye test, checking my vision and for cataracts and things like that. That's what you normally do at the eye doctors. Like I said, I'm still waiting for the hearing test. But there was a lot of that. We just paid the whole package. The highest package offered here cost 1,550 Malaysian ringgit, something like that. But we paid less because there was some promo going on, and even I, as a European, was eligible for it, so that was very nice, 1,350. But the hospital itself is really nice, very clean. You don't know much about me, for example, that I've been traveling a lot for many years. You know me from the YouTube channel where we do tech stuff. But it's true that I travel a lot. I have to tell you, having been to Spain dozens of times, Italy, Portugal, Greece, sometimes it's really hard to communicate in English there. In Spain, even though it's so close and many Spaniards travel there and watch movies, it's really hard to communicate. Here, practically everyone speaks Malay, that is Malayan. A lot of people speak Chinese, and that's because in Malaysia, the majority of the population are Malaysians. Yes, people from Malaysia who are not native here, but that's a longer story. However, the second largest population here are the Chinese, and they are considered relatively smart here, which is why some Malaysians send their children to Chinese schools, because there they learn a bit better, a bit more, and a bit more is expected from them.
And so, people here who are of the Muslim faith can be found speaking fluent Mandarin, which is quite interesting.
So my beloved, of course, speaks Malay, Chinese, English, and a bit of French. Not too much French, though.
So, getting back to the topic, since I mentioned that it's nice and clean here, if you know English, Malaysia is probably one of the friendliest countries to communicate in. I'll even show you some pictures. At the hospital, you have signs in English, Malay, or maybe it was English, Chinese, and Malay.
So basically, everyone can find their way around here.
There were a lot of nurses here. Everyone spoke perfect English, maybe even better than mine.
So in this respect, this country is absolutely beautiful. Because if you've ever tried to just go to Spain, for example, you know how annoying it can be to communicate with someone.
Of course, we have something like Google Translate, and that can be annoying, right? I mean, it works, sure, but honestly, the communication is delayed and awkward, and then people often don't want to talk to you because you don't understand their language and they don't understand yours. However, in Malaysia, I haven't had the slightest problem with that anywhere I've been here.
Before, I also practically never met anyone who didn't speak English very well, so that's really convenient.
After spending many hours in the hospital, I became exceptionally talkative, but I'd like to clarify the topic of the English language in Malaysia, because it might have sounded different than it should have.
Well, not every resident has to be a master of English. After all, that's the case everywhere.
Even in Ireland, I often meet people, usually newcomers from Brazil, who only understand the word okay, and apart from that, it's hard to communicate with them.
Many workers from poorer countries like the Philippines or Bangladesh also come to Malaysia, and communicating with them in English is much less likely. I asked my beloved about this, and she estimates that about 80% of Malaysia's residents know English.
Of course, it depends on the source, but according to some data, over 70% of Malaysians speak English at a high level, while Wikipedia gives a lower percentage, 62%, which seems like an underestimation to me.
My beloved had mathematics in Mandarin in high school, but a subject called science was taught in English, and although in Poland there isn't such a single subject, this one covers biology, chemistry, physics, and sometimes also earth sciences.
It's a completely different way of acquiring a language. Here, the entire process of reasoning took place in English.
Even in kindergarten, English was the main language of communication for her. Most of the children were Malays, but about 30% came from Chinese families, and some had parents from India. So it's no wonder that in such an environment, the teachers spoke English, read stories in English, and led activities in that language. That's exactly why English is more established here than in countries where exposure to it is limited to just 1 or 2 lessons a week.
The second thing is the attitude towards English. In Malaysia, people are eager to use this language.
In Spain, even though statistics show that 22% of the population knows English, the reality seems to be quite different.
Even people who actually understand the language often don't even want to use it. In Spain, there is a general reluctance toward English, largely due to the behavior of some British tourists.
In the tourist regions of Spain, or in the Canary Islands, there is no shortage of loud and rude, even downright pathological visitors who effectively discourage the local residents from using that language.
Anyone who has been there knows. I think no further explanation is needed here.
When I talk to Spaniards, I usually charismatically tell them that I'm Polaco, soy de Polonia, meaning that I'm from Poland, which changes the tone of the conversation every time, even if at first it was unpleasant or had a rather pretentious tone.
Spaniards generally like people from Poland, and then they are able to understand that we communicate with them only in English, at least in most cases, of course. But it's easy to see why this distance exists. If you had drunk tourists yelling under your windows every night until 3 in the morning, even though you have to get up for work at 6, you might also develop a dislike for the English language and its speakers.
Cheap flights from the United Kingdom and Ireland to Spain mean that quite often the least refined social class comes there, and they don't leave the best memories behind.
Forgive my directness, but I have seen a great deal over time.
There are simply no such problems in Malaysia, and when I use English here, I encounter nothing but genuine kindness. But let's get back to health topics now. I wanted to say that if you're saving some money and would like to do something good for yourself or your loved ones, then such a checkup would be worth doing. I waited 3 years for this, and actually 3 years ago it was just a blood test, which checks some things. But like I said, here we had an X-ray, meaning a scan of the whole body, a full body magnetic resonance imaging, and an ultrasound of the entire abdominal cavity. Absolutely a lot of tests on that chart. It will show you something. So now I'm waiting for that last test. Oh, and besides that, so we spent 1,350 ringgit on this whole package. But because I play basketball, which you might not know, I've dislocated three fingers, I think, on this hand, and 1 or 2 fingers on this hand, and I have a broken toe. I had it recently, but that was during water sports in Spain, and I'll get back to that in Spain. My shoulder, my right shoulder, I don't want to say it's damaged, but there's some kind of injury, right? It happened when I was attacking. Someone hung on my arm really hard, and it's been half a year and it still won't heal. I have trouble lifting it. So here we also realized that in Ireland, for doctors, the only solution for everything is paracetamol. Zmivac, which some of you might be watching, will likely confirm that the situation in the United Kingdom looks quite similar, unfortunately. Here I went to a Chinese doctor, and here we actually discussed things. I'll also have another scan of this shoulder later this afternoon, because there really is something going on there. Right, sorry, I was supposed to tell you something about Spain. So in Spain I broke my toe and I went to the hospital for it, okay? With the European health insurance card, something like that is available to everyone if you live, let's say, in Ireland. Or in another Polish country, in another European country, if you pay contributions, not taxes, health insurance contributions, then you get this card, you can apply for it, it's free, and then you can travel all over Europe. And in case an accident happens, you don't pay out of your own pocket. 5 million euros, it's covered by the insurance, because it's worth doing if you're going on vacation somewhere in Europe. I went there with this card. Of course, they helped as much as they could, and literally as much as they could, which wasn't much. They gave me 2 band-aids to hold 2 toes together, the big one on my foot, broken. I mean, we also did an X-ray, and that's why I wanted to say that in Spain, their English is really poor. Nobody at the reception wanted to help, and they just don't care at all. They don't even want to say a word in English through a translator. They don't want to read. Really very rude. You could say it's not a very friendly attitude. That's what happened to me in Spain. It depends on the person's mood, feelings, and the situation. Here, on the other hand, people are treated differently, more friendly. Everyone speaks English really well. People speak 3 languages, and everyone is really satisfied. So, all right, I have to wrap this up. Sorry for the long speech, but I hope you'll take it to heart, because your health and the health of your loved ones is important. And if you want to give someone a nice gift, maybe it's worth considering a general, thorough checkup of basically everything. We had everything there. I don't know, maybe I can show you some of the documents, how it looks. I've got something with my heart, by the way. Something is showing up, so I have to go to a not a cardiac surgeon, a cardiologist, to do more tests. But I learned something. I thought I would be all clear, but that's why it's worth checking everything. So I'm heading out now for this hearing test. After that, we're going to the beach, right? So I'll show you the beach. And while we're walking in this video, I'll also talk to you about cars. The cars here are nice, I won't lie. I like these different ones. It's something different than, oh, a little crow. The cars here are different from what we usually see in Europe. It was the same in Vietnam, but here the automotive industry is much more advanced. There are a lot fewer motorcycles. It looks like it's going to rain soon. There's a really awesome cloud coming over there. But we'll have time to talk about cars. And well, we'll see each other again when we're at the beach.
To avoid a potential tropical rain, I took shelter inside for the rest of the research. But as your narrator, I think we should take a break from this hospital reality, even if just for a moment.
It would be worth telling you about the fascinating world of Malaysian automotive culture, which is a unique blend of local brands and imported cars.
Proton is the first Malaysian car brand, founded in 1983.
Initially, it cooperated with Mitsubishi, but now with the Chinese company Geely, which has enabled them to develop modern, including electric models.
The new logo features the Malayan tiger, but in the past, these cars displayed a star and a crescent.
Maybe you even had a chance to see this logo yourself, because Proton used to be imported to Poland.
In front of us is the Proton Saga, an absolute classic.
To me, it always kind of smelled like Alfa Romeo design.
Well, actually, you can share your thoughts in the comments about what it looks like to you, but for me, it's a beautiful car from the old days.
Well, today it stands out with its looks, and let's be honest, it's an old wreck, beaten up, probably worth as much as an iced coffee or maybe even less.
And here I agree with you that this kind of vehicle can be called an old wreck, but even though this version is already between 22 and 33 years old, at least judging by the model year, it still holds up, and quite a few of these cars are still in daily use here. The Proton Saga is still being produced, of course, in modern, refreshed versions, but even models from 15, 20, or even 30 years ago are still efficiently driving on Malaysian roads and handling city traffic jams.
These teenage Protons are cheap, but since they still drive well, they've become a frequent subject of agricultural tuning, sometimes in a more, sometimes in a less elegant form. I've seen many such modifications, and although some of them can be called totally tacky, I have to admit they have their own specific charm. It's nice to look at these street oddities. Newer Protons are also sometimes affected by their owners' tuning fantasies, and although the fewer modifications the better, everyone has the right to express their own style. Maybe it's tacky, but I like the charming contrast of these older Protons on the local streets.
I also like newer Protons like the X50. A few years ago, on the way to Kuala Lumpur Airport, we had an unpleasant incident.
A truck broke down in the middle lane of the highway, losing parts of its drivetrain. A lot of cars were damaged then, and we cut 2 tires, damaged the sill, and tore the wheel arch. Fortunately, we came out of it unscathed, but the car was no longer fit to drive, and our flight was in just 4 hours.
We were saved from trouble by an elderly Malaysian couple who happened to be traveling in a new Proton X50.
They were wonderful people, both university professors, which may explain my positive association with this model.
On the other hand, the X70 is a car that would probably sell well in Europe too.
Although Proton was the first Malaysian brand, later Perodua was established, completely overtook its competitor, and dominated the local market.
Perodua specializes in producing small economical cars, and as we know, such vehicles are really in demand.
It's almost unimaginable that nearly every second car sold in this country is a Perodua. No, I'm not joking.
43.8% of sales are cars with the P logo on the hood. See for yourself.
1, 2, 3. The Myvi, actually, if I'm not mistaken, is based on the Yaris chassis and is one of the most popular cars here. Here you also have a Beza, here's another Myvi, and there's yet another Myvi over there. There's a lot of them. Here's another Myvi, and that's also another one of the same, so Myvi. Here's also some Perodua, my god, what am I saying? Not Proton. Here's also a Perodua. There's a Perodua over there. That yellow one, that one, the dark blue, navy blue one is also a Myvi. There are tons, absolutely tons of these cars driving on these roads.
So what now?
And most of all, it helps the economy. The money stays in the country can develop. They're not giving money away to those nasty Germans or other countries. Here you have another example. Look, just a regular walk here. Well, this is Proton. Here you have Perodua, 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 Perodua.
So what? I told you, it's completely flooded. In the mirror behind us, next to us, in front and further away, there's a blue Perodua and a sport utility vehicle in another lane. The remaining 37–38% of cars are imports. Surprisingly, Volkswagens are quite rare here.
Literally, once we were driving behind one, so I even recorded that rare one.
As you can see, this one wasn't spared from tuning either, and for the most part the cars here are Toyota, Nissan, and sometimes you'll also see Mercedes or BMW.
However, that doesn't mean they're the same as the ones back home.
Here we see a Nissan Latio, a perfect candidate for Need for Speed Underground tuning. Besides, those Nissan Sylphis in the back also look pretty good.
I wonder how many of you can guess what kind of car this is. Tell me. Write it in the comments. 3, 2, 1.
This, my friends, this is basically a Toyota.
Yes, I'm not kidding. What we're looking at is a Toyota Alphard. The logo and the gigantic grille could easily fool many car enthusiasts.
From the front, this vehicle looks colossal and luxurious, but that's not the end of the automotive surprises.
What you're seeing now is the Velfire, actually two of them side by side. It's not a sub-brand, but a specific model, and this will also surprise you. It's from Toyota.
Alphard and Velfire are luxury minivans that are often sold side by side. They share the same platform and many features.
They only differ in styling details and equipment.
In Malaysia and Japan, both of these models have a strong position on the market as premium family cars or for transporting VIPs. This is not a cheap vehicle. A new one costs around 500,000 zlotys, but as you can see, they're plentiful here. First, second, third, and not in front of a government building, but by a coconut bar. People in this area really enjoy vans or minivans. Driving on the roads is also quite pleasant. I didn't have any weird problems. The traffic lights and signs are normal too. But let's get back to what happened at the hospital. 31 degrees, feels like 39.
A standard day in Malaysia. Oh, and the humidity is 95%.
Since we still have about an hour, maybe an hour and a half before my magnetic resonance imaging, this time for my shoulder, we decided to go to the beach. But this isn't a beach in the sense that it's a real, full beach. It's just access to the sea, you could say, about 5 minutes from the hospital where we were. It's peaceful here with music playing in the background. There are some places over there you can take a look at. I really like this building, actually these two buildings behind me. But my mom said we shouldn't go out there into those bushes because a crocodile was found there recently. Well, I don't know, there are a lot of kids running around here, so those crocodiles, even if they're there, probably aren't hungry, so I doubt anyone would be interested in me. But the view is beautiful just to walk around, and maybe we'll grab something else to eat because actually I ate curry, but honestly I'd like to have something sweet. And right behind me there's some kind of all-terrain vehicle. You can rent it and ride around on the sand here as long as it's empty. But the thing is, no matter how you look at it, this is a Muslim country. So earlier I saw a woman going into the water fully dressed in, what's it called? Not a habit, something like that. She went into the water in it and was swimming like that. Of course, I absolutely respect that. I respect their religion and all, but the thing is, swimming in those clothes, you could drown, so I like that less, because honestly, it's dangerous, right? If you put 10 scarves on your head and tried to swim like that, even in a pool, it would be safer. But in the sea with waves, it seems a bit dangerous to me, right? That's a different matter. Let's just leave it at that, so to speak. Let's all respect each other and our beliefs, right? Well, that's why you won't really find too many people on the beaches here, except for tourists, especially in strictly tourist spots.
It's just empty.
As far as the eye can see, you can probably see it now in the cutaway shot, it's just empty. You can chill out there, and here we grab a coffee, actually a tropical coconut latte for 8 ringgits. Here you can see the coffee is ready. Of course, it's iced coffee, but I don't know if you have something like this in Poland yet. You get it with handles, and it's in this kind of foil, right? So you don't have to hold the cold cup. You can carry it like this. So it's an elegant way to carry an ice-cold coffee when it's 30. Well, now it's 28 degrees, as I can see. We bought these local donuts, supposedly the best in Malacca, and they're made from sweet potato. Absolutely brilliant. We paid 10 ringgit for the pack, and it contains 12 pieces. And the idea is that you can eat the donuts and hold your drink by this little net. Brilliant. When we were walking on the beach in Vietnam, I mentioned to you that the beaches were terribly dirty. But here it's really clean. What you see on this sand are needles from these conifer trees. There are plenty of trash bins here. You see, I can just walk over and throw away the rest. Well, there's only ice left, the rest from my coffee. It's clean, it's relatively quiet. Well, there are a few cars driving by here, right? So it's nicer and calmer than in Vietnam. Well, of course, in this place, right? But overall, there's a different vibe, maybe a bit more civilized. It's a risky truth to say, but it is the truth. After resting here briefly, we returned to the hospital. My magnetic resonance imaging lasted over 40 minutes.
It's pretty claustrophobic to be in that kind of coffin, as some people call it, or in the tube.
Well, anyone who's been there knows what it's like. It's after 6 p.m. and honestly, we're already pretty tired.
Now we're waiting for a specialist who will look at my magnetic resonance imaging results.
And I also had an x-ray done, you know, the kind of picture for my toe, both hands, and that's basically it.
And now we're waiting to hear what he'll say. He's in surgery.
So it's getting late, it'll be dark soon, there's a little window behind me. So we won't do anything else today except this all day. I still have one more unboxing to do at home. Maybe I'll manage to do it later in the evening. The doctor is still in surgery, which was supposed to be finished by now.
And since we don't want to come back here again anytime soon, it's best to take care of everything right away, of course.
We're walking through a nearly vacant hospital, but you can see the decorations. Let me explain what they represent. Last week there was a holiday. Here they call it Selamar Hari Raya. Of course, totally butchered. But the holiday's called that. It means it's the new year, you could say. That's what they celebrate. And maybe you don't know, but in China there's a tradition where you give a red envelope to children as a gift, right? Just like in our country, people give some trinkets, which later maybe aren't thrown away, but are unnecessary or just clutter. Here they give cash, money, in a red envelope. However, in Malaysia, Malaysians give money in a green envelope. So instead of thinking about what to give someone, you just give money and someone is happy about it. What you see here are bamboo sticks placed by the fire. Of course, this is artificial fire because we're in a hospital, so no one is going to make a real fire here. However, as you can read, bamboo rice is a delicious traditional dish, especially popular in Southeast Asia and some regions of China. It is prepared by placing sticky rice along with coconut milk or other spices inside a bamboo tube. Wait, in a tube and then cooking it over a fire or steaming it, which gives it that unique bamboo flavor and aroma, right? You have something like that here too. That's how they put it on the fire. Here, of course, this is just a sample prepared, and that's how supposedly delicious rice is made. I didn't know, I hadn't seen it, but we're learning new things together. One more thing, once the rice is made here, they pack it into something nice like this. You see, in these little bamboo leaves, that's where the sweet rice is. And here there's also a decoration made from it. I mean, something similar, but no one puts food in this one anymore. It's just a decoration, kind of like a Christmas ornament, you could say, almost for hanging on a Christmas tree. A symbol of good rice and prosperity. All right, next trick.
As for this little teapot, I would say it's for tea, and I would pour myself some from it, but it turns out it's actually for washing your hands.
As you can see, you take it in your hands and pour. That's why you have these holes here. You have these holes, I don't know if you can see it. I can lift it up so that the used water from washing your hands goes in there and doesn't spill everywhere, right? If you're somewhere in a room, you wash your hands like this, one, then the other, and then you put it aside. You don't drink this, it's for washing your hands seriously. One more thing you should know is that in Malaysia, houses on stilts are a traditional architectural style, especially among the Malay community. These buildings are constructed on elevated wooden posts, which helps protect against floods. It also improves ventilation and provides a cooler interior in the tropical climate. Okay, and as for that, it's the most popular electrolyte drink in Malaysia. If a child is sick, then the parents buy this and make them drink something like that. I don't know if you can see it well, maybe we'll get a bit closer. Here you can see what it's about. There are calories, there's sodium in it, so yeah, electrolytes. But it has quite a lot of sugar. Well, it's basically sugar water, as they say, with some salt. We're still waiting for the orthopedist, but since we're totally bored and really have nothing to do, we'll do a test, because why not? It turns out it's after 7 o'clock and the doctor is still in surgery, so we've scheduled it for tomorrow instead. We have to change all our plans because there's no other option now. We don't know when he'll finish. He was supposed to finish at, from what he told me, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Everything was supposed to be done, right? But if it's 7 o'clock, then something must have really gotten complicated. And now we're going home. And that's it for today. Jesus, I just fell. See you tomorrow. Hey travelers, time flies.
This episode is already approaching an hour, and we still have so much to show you, so we're taking a little break now so you can catch your breath before the next dose of excitement.
So I warmly invite you to the next episode, which will soon appear on my channel, in the travel playlist, and on the website www.techmaniakhd.pl. See you in the next episode.